Okay, we are live. Good afternoon. Good morning, Tali. How's it going?
Thank you. It's going good. It's 7:22, so it is like fully morning for me. How are you doing today?
I'm glorious. It is the Monday after spring break,
Nice.
so my kids are gone, and while I love them, I am happy for them to not be here, and
That's right. You had them
just
all
a little
home
bit of
every
calm.
day.
Yeah, a little bit of chill, a little bit of calm. So I'm glad for that. How was your weekend?
It was good. So I'll dox myself before there are people here to listen. But my wife is in a band, basically, or really, I should say, she used to be in a band. And when we
Mm-hmm.
first met, they had like stopped playing. But I joke with her that she like catfished me because when we matched on Bumble, her like picture
Mm-hmm.
was her like drumming. And so I like thought I was getting involved with this musician, and then I've
You
never
didn't.
heard her play in our entire relationship. Their last show that they played together was 8 years ago. Um, but her
Okay.
band
Yeah.
did they got an opportunity to open for Anberlin, who I wasn't familiar with before, but I guess they're like mainstream-ish, whatever. Um,
Okay.
and so this they had a 40-minute set, a 40-minute opening set, and I was their
What
merch
kind of
girl. I
music?
sold merch.
Oh,
It's
that's
like
fun.
they would, yeah, I think they would call it like, what the fuck do they call it? Like backyard rock, kind of
Okay.
punk, kind of like all of them are like really big fans of like the Strokes. So
Okay.
it's kind of like moody rockish music.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it was freaking awesome. They did so amazing. It was I'm like a
Uh,
fan of their music because I started listening to their music right when I met her.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but it was so cool. They had people who like came out who had been fans of them, who came to the show just to see them. And then even like during their set, because again, I'm manning the merch table, there were people who were
Mm-hmm.
there for the headliner who were coming up and like, oh my gosh, they're so, this is so good. Are they from here and whatever? And like they got new fans too. So it was a really
Ah,
great experience, and I hope that they'll perform again. And here's my little fun fact or whatever. After the show, we go outside. There's like people like smoking cigarettes and whatever. It's like a very
yeah.
kind of a
It's the
messy
best.
spot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's this like group of guys, and they recognize my wife because she's wearing the same thing as she was wearing on stage.
Yeah.
Like you guys were so good. That was a really good set. Um, and this one guy is like, yeah, like I'm a musician, and like that. I was really impressed, about you guys, especially you haven't been out there in 8 years. And his friend is like, oh, he's being modest, like he's legit, like he's famous. And then his other friend is like, he's in All Time Low. And it was the
Ooh.
bass player from All Time Low who stopped my wife outside to compliment her in the band.
That's
Um, yeah, we got like a picture of the
that's like
two of
super
them, and it
cool.
it was it was it was super cool. So I had a great week. I'm still like coming off that
You're
high.
still coming off that high. Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. She must have been like very like happy and like, you know,
totally. And drunk. She got
satisfying. Like,
very drunk after they. And it's funny too because they all were basically sober for the performance, and they were
yeah.
getting all this feedback, especially from like their parents. My wife's parents came and stuff to the show, and they're like,
Ah,
"You guys even sound better than 8 years ago." And they were like, "Well, we're all sober. Like we used to be fucking trashed on stage, They're like all at different points in their lives now. Um, but they
oh,
all got trashed like the second they got off the stage, just for old time's sake.
that's funny. That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
may as well have fun,
Yeah,
especially if they're not
exactly.
playing gigs often, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ah,
So yeah, that's my fun story.
that's great. I was just thinking, it's been so long since I've been to a show. Um, yeah, and then so you weren't familiar with your wife's band, or you were familiar with her band?
Not before we met.
Okay.
So
That's good.
like I got introduced to their music when we met, and then I listened to their music. So I've like heard all their music, but I had never heard them play live. Oh, and it's even cuter. It's like a family band. So her brother, so my brother-in-law is the lead singer, and my now sister-in-law is the bassist. So she was, they're married now, so they got to announce that on stage. Like since our last show, the two of us got married, right? So yeah, very, very, very sweet, very cool. And I love them all. And I know them all really well too, right? Because it's my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So it was great.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Filipinos are famously musically talented people. I feel like Hassan when I say that, when he was talking about the Yemenis and the Houthi music videos.
They're very musical people.
Yeah, but actually Filipinos really are a very like flamboyant and theatrical people. I don't know if there are a lot of Filipinos around where you live, Kay. I would guess not, but I have literally no idea.
No, there's pockets. Like I don't know if it's like super predominant, but there's like definitely like there's definitely a community,
right?
If you will. Like I wouldn't be able to like put a number on it now, but like Montreal is like a very culturally diverse city.
True.
Yeah, so it has like a lot of like
different
groups of like different types of like immigrant populations or like ethnic like
different kind of
neighborhoods and
stuff too.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna step up to grab a napkin, but I'm listening to you. I'm here.
You're listening. Okay. So I don't know. We didn't touch base really before we came on today, and I think we were just maybe said something about going over the Destiny and Hutch discussion, and I think there was also Destiny had that same conversation with Connor, or not the same conversation, but it was like a conversation regarding the same issue, if you will. So did you hear both of them, or did you just hear the Hutch one?
I heard. I did. Okay, so yeah, I think I don't know if I heard the entire Destiny and Connor conversation, but I did. I remember now that we were talking about Connor a bit. We were talking about the Constantine and Destiny debate in our last conversation.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Connor, and I ended up finishing off that conversation between Connor and Destiny about the Constantine debate. So I'd like to talk about that too, potentially.
Yeah, and there were like comments on the last video that I'm like meant to pull up. They weren't very nice, but like
I didn't even see them.
Yeah, I'll try and pull it up in a second. Something regarding that, and something like, are you going to stop being stupid or something to that regard? And no, I'm probably not going to stop being stupid ever.
What was the topic that they were commenting on?
This last video, I think it had to do with the immigration. I have to pull it up, and I'm so confused with this 2 computers set up in front of me and the mouse, and I keep grabbing the mouse for the wrong computer. Life is hard right now.
Yeah,
this video is not. So, yeah, I'll pull them up and see what it was, but it was, I don't know, something about that. Yeah. So you did see part of the one with Connor and Destiny about that, or maybe not.
Like about the Hutch conversation, basically. That's the one we're talking about right now.
Yeah, the same kind of, like the same, not the Constantine one. The same. Like,
I'm pretty sure I did. I think they're kind of fuzzy to me right now because I most recently listened to his conversation about the Constantine debate. So they're slightly blended, but I do believe that I'm pretty sure I watched the Connor and Destiny conversation after. And Connor was, if I'm remembering correctly, Connor was pushing back pretty significantly, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. And Destiny, like, at least to me, came across as like more like the positions were a little bit, they weren't different, but they were harder, if you will. They were like more severe, you know?
Oh, like you're saying he doubled down.
Yes.
With Connor. Interesting.
I think, yeah. And hello, Connor, in chat.
Hey, Connor. Well, and I think in Destiny's conversation with Connor about Constantine, I think because we were talking about the debate in our last conversation, but I hadn't finished the Connor Destiny conversation. Yeah, I would love for Connor to come in. But basically,
yes,
I think
I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to send maybe, do I just send the link from StreamYard?
Yes, send the StreamYard link. Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, I think part of what you and I were saying was affirmed in that conversation between Connor and Destiny, which is Destiny's bad faith to anyone who he doesn't see as on his team, anyone who he sees as like right of center, I guess. And obviously he sees Connor that way, but he sees Connor as on his team too. That might have to do with them being friends, which is good. It's good if like a human connection to someone can make you be more reasonable. That's a positive thing. And I think it's also, as I commented last time, because Connor in the short term is on Team Blue. Until the Republican Party returns to something, he's on Team Blue. So I think those are the reasons that Destiny is more reasonable with him. But I feel like that was just totally spelled out because thankfully, just by Connor, I think accurately regurgitating Constantine's views, Destiny was way more willing to deal with them. But every time he did this sort of like preface of like, I won't even engage with this if it was Constantine, if it was someone else. So I'm very glad that Connor exists I'm glad that Connor exists in general, but as this figure in Destiny's life, because I feel like he just basically said as much, that he would not even entertain this conversation with someone who he basically doesn't see as on his team.
Okay. He's here. I'm going to add him onto the stage now. Okay. Hello.
Hey, Connor.
Pretty good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that is sincerely appreciated. And I viewed that as my role in the niche for a really long time, is taking right-wing conservative ideas and articulating them in a way that isn't stupid as hell, so liberals and progressives offhandedly dismiss them without even considering them. So the fact that, I really really doing that in probably 2019, late 2019. So the fact that I still get to fulfill that role 5 years later is actually really encouraging to hear. But Kay was saying that she was disappointed and sad that I brought up Epstein in reference to a geopolitical conversation about the Iran war, and I wasn't trying to be upsetting at all. So I kind of want to hear what the beef is.
Okay, well, for like sad, but like we're in chat, so
No, we're gonna be nice.
It's just a bit disappointing, but like if it's a meme position, okay,
it's mostly a meme position, but there's still something there that we should dig into.
Maybe you need to dig into it. Maybe I don't feel the need to dig into it, right? Like we can have a different assessment on that, but we can. It was just more, I think not the only other person, but the main other person who I heard talking about that was like Kyle Kalinske. And that was like a very brain rotted kind of view. So if it's not coming from maybe that,
it probably isn't. So if it's
not coming from that like logic, then
Yeah, can I articulate it, and then you can tell me what your objections are? So my position would be, and I actually want to differentiate this into two separate statements, and I think people are making logical inferences from one to the other to make it more nefarious than it is. Okay, so watching Chris Cappy's video summarizing Jeffrey Epstein's intelligence ties, it seems like he was a fixer for the Saudi government, for the Turks, for Israel, for Iran, for the United States. And in particular, in the 1980s, he got his start by being a fixer for the British military industrial complex. That seems to be his start. He helped facilitate deals where we sold the Western world, we sold Tornado fighter jets and modern missile systems to Saudi Arabia. And that took a lot of the Saudis, like when they get stuff, they like to get money. They like to get whores. They like to get booze. They like to get drugs. And so it seemed like
haram.
Right. It seemed like Jeffrey Epstein was a part of the haram party scene to smooth over this military arms trafficking. And so he also became friends with Adnan Khashoggi, who was the arms dealer who facilitated the Iran-Contra affair. And so, at least the way that the video explains it, he was working with Adnan Khashoggi, which he met through the Saudi arms deal. They facilitated American weapons flying into Israel because you couldn't fly straight into Iran. Then those weapons were flown into or driven into Iran. And then the black ops revenue generated from selling these weapons, which were effectively against sanctioning, that money was then turned over to the CIA for the CIA to fund anti-communist military operations in Central and South America. And so the airline that was used for that trafficking was called Southern Air Transport. And Southern Air Transport, when the Iran-Contra affair was exposed, was then sold to Leslie Wexner. Leslie Wexner being the owner of Gap, the owner of Victoria's Secret. I think he might actually be the owner of Bed Bath & Beyond as well. I forget but there's another household
it's the
name
limited brands.
Yeah. So he owns these brands. And he's also like a Giga Zionist. And he and Jeffrey Epstein's are both friends with Ehud Barak. And so the point is that, like, now let's separate that. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein is clicked up with Intel.
To be clear, Connor, you would
Yep.
acknowledge that, like, everything you just painted is a picture that includes indisputable facts and just inferences of connecting dots, right? In that picture that you just painted is facts and non-facts or non-confirmed
Well,
facts.
you would have to clarify the non-facts, and I would also have to do research.
The money
in order
of the
to
sales,
make sure that
the money of those
were
sales,
facts.
sure, the money of those sales going to the CIA, and the CIA then using that money for anti-communist. That section is what just immediately sticks out to me. Of course, you can't confirm that, right?
That's pretty well documented, though, from the Iran-Contra affair. So during the 1980s, I actually have a picture of me shaking Oliver North's hand, which I think is hilarious. So in the 1980s, late 1980s, the Iran-Contra affair was exposed by Congress because Congress had actually specifically prohibited the Reagan administration from providing money to anti-communist guerrillas in Central and South America, because the groups that we were working with were pretty fucking malicious. Like, they killed the fuck out of people and they were not nice about it. So Congress prohibited the Reagan administration from doing this. And so it was Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North who actually oversaw the Iran-Contra affair. And there were public congressional hearings on this. So the fact that the only thing that's in dispute from my perspective is what facts tell you specifically that he worked with the British military industrial complex, Adnan Khashoggi, and Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. If you asked me, like, hey, do you have a document that shows this? The answer is no. I have a YouTube video. But I'm assuming that the YouTube video is from a reputable source, and this has been speculated on by mainstream media. So my presumption is that they have access to the primary sources that establish these relationships.
I do worry that this YouTube video is basically your only point of reference for kind of all of this. Like, I've heard you now repeat this as your, like, strongest reference point. And I say worry, I haven't watched the video. I'll watch it. I'm not opposed to watching it. I won't speak for Kay, but yeah, I'm more along the lines of what Pisco was saying, which is I don't believe I actually go further than that, but I definitely don't believe in the maximalist narrative of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And I think also along the lines of what Pisco is saying, I think this obviously would have happened without Jeffrey Epstein ever existing, like or very well could have, right? Unless that would have spun off a whole nother series.
There are so many things that are more explanatory than a blackmail, a Felix sex trafficking ring.
Especially because we have no evidence of the blackmailing for sexual encounter. That's also the part of the Jeffrey Epstein maximalist position that there is that there's no evidence for, really. I mean, literally.
Let's The only reason why I'm not agreeing with you yet is because I want to leave room, but this is where we can, this is actually the crux of the conversation. So if you're telling and or asking me, is the neoconservative, and I say neoconservative, I literally mean like liberal hawks.
Yeah, you're a neocon. I'm a neocon.
I'm a neocon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So liberal hawks who want to export mixed economy capitalism and liberal democracy to the world as maximally as possible through soft power and hard power, because we're competing with fascism, communism, and Islamic theocracy. That is sufficiently explanatory to me that you do not need Jeffrey Epstein to explain our intervention in Iran. So we agree, is what I'm saying. The only reason why I bring up Jeffrey Epstein, though, and I want to keep going with it because I think this is where you guys would push back. So for me, if it's as simple as this guy was clicked up with intel, and then he used that to get a sweetheart deal from the federal government, and that's the end of the story, then that should be the end of the story. But we could have released that over the past 6 months, over the past year, over the past 5 years.
But there's actually
released.
But maybe that's because we don't have. Maybe that's because we don't have evidence that he was given a quote unquote sweetheart deal because of those things. Like there are people who have looked into the sentencing and all of this stuff in the Florida case, and there really isn't evidence that he committed such a heinous. Like it's not like he was supposed to receive.
I don't agree.
I'll
tell you why I don't agree, though.
You want to pull some of the stuff up?
Sure.
It's not like he was facing a life sentence and he got 3 years on house arrest. Like
what he was actually convicted of.
Correct.
Not for what all of the charges and stuff before the plea came, for what he actually ended up
what he adjudicated. Yeah.
Let's talk about this, though. Okay. So Alex Acosta, part of the deal that Alex Acosta signed included the sworn written affidavits of 40 victims who claimed to have been sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein in this way. So from a law enforcement perspective, a sworn so basically, let me break this down from, obviously I was just a city cop, but I still think these things stand true regardless of my personal experience. In individual witness testimony, as a law enforcement officer, I did not treat an individual witness testimony as anything unless it was corroborated by additional facts. Okay. And the reason being is because oftentimes people are hyperbolic from their perspective in order to make the best case possible for themselves. And so as a result, like, let's talk about domestic violence battery real quick. If there's a female who got into a fist fight with her boyfriend or husband, and then there's a male who's getting into a fight with the boyfriend or husband, they might have contradictory narratives against each other that they both sincerely believe because they're entrenched within their own bias. And therefore, you cannot treat the witness testimony as solid evidence. However, that being said, once you get the same witness statement over and over and over and over again, that raises the threshold of which witness testimony is
Connor,
treated.
If they're sealed, how do you know that these are all 40 consistent, coherent, actual victim? You don't, right? And so you would think that if there were 40 women who had these super strong cases that all resembled each other, they would have been part of this trial, right? There were young girls who were brought in to stand witness, who were part of this trial. So it is a bit suspicious, especially when we know that
part of which trial?
The Florida trial, the one that he was convicted for, where he supposedly got it. They're saying
it never
there was
made it to trial because they signed a plea agreement.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me slightly change what I'm saying. These women could have been deposed. These 40 victims could have been deposed to build the case. So why wouldn't that have happened?
That's actually a lot of the critics of the Florida case. That's their exact question. So these women, hold on real quick. These women were deposed. Their sworn written statements are a part of the record. But what's happening is the Trump administration, I think specifically in reference to this case, they said, because they've received the Jeffrey Epstein law, right? Which basically says you need to release everything except for victim information. Okay. And so hold on real quick, because this is important. The South Florida case, the DOJ told the South Florida people, hey, you release it. And then the Florida people didn't release it. And in the statements from the District of Florida, they say, hey, we have all these rules against releasing grand jury testimony because we have all these protection laws, whereas the law is directing the DOJ to release these files. You do not need our authorization to do so. We will not violate the guidance from our district. You have the files, you redact them, you release them. And so far, the DOJ has not complied with that. So back to you, I would say the federal government is in direct violation of a unanimously passed statute. Why is the DOJ refusing to release this information? And why?
Sorry, and we have evidence
that they're releasing. Hold on, real quick. Final statement, I promise. Yeah. Why is the information that they're releasing clearly violating the statute?
So you're saying that they are not releasing information that they should release, and that they are releasing information that is contraindicated by the new Epstein law, basically? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Leslie Wexner, the person that I mentioned.
Sorry, where is the evidence? Hold on, that there is this standoff between between Florida and the DOJ. Like, I
you can literally just Google. I mean, I could pull it up, but it's basically like judges rule against releasing Florida Epstein files or something. And the way that Fox News is reporting it is they're saying they're blaming the judges for not releasing it. So give me 1 second. Okay. But the judges themselves, if you read their statements, the judges are saying this is a total optics bullshit by the Trump administration. The Trump administration could release these files at any moment. We have local prohibitions against the releasing of this kind of information. The federal government does not.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Okay. So my understanding is that there's 17 affidavits from the Florida case that ended up coming into play. There may have been more like interviews.
Alleged victims.
There may have been more interviews done, but what I'm seeing is that there were 17 affidavits. Like, I mean, if there's
okay, well, how many rape teenagers do we need before we start caring?
No,
hold on, but wait, Connor, we don't know that these are rape teenagers.
Like,
I mean, even that
is just clarifying. And I'm not saying
sure.
I was just
okay. I'm being flippant though, because it feels sweepy.
But I think doesn't the truth matter though, right? Like, this is one area where
absolutely
everyone like should be on edge and should take this stuff seriously, and it's because we're talking about pedophilia, right? It's because we're talking about the thing that most normal people recoil, right? It's like the most disturbing, deranged thing that most people can think of is harming innocent children. We all agree with that.
Sure.
The truth just does matter, right? So again, even in the women who were, or the girls, these were young girls who were on the record, whose affidavits and depositions we've seen, the overwhelming majority of them never claimed penetration. So again, to say how many raped teenagers do you need to like be angry about this? It seems like what was happening was a lot of gross massages. And again, this isn't even that uncommon. So let me make
what, hand jobs?
No, literally
massages.
No, actual physical massages, as in not touching his feet.
Virginia Giuffre, no.
Virginia Giuffre is the least credible person of all of these witnesses here. She has had to retract her accusations against several of the key figures in this case. As far as I'm concerned, are you talking about
Alan Dershowitz?
Yes, and King Prince King Andrew, whatever the fuck his name is. Yes, and Alan Dershowitz. Yes. So
hold on. No. This does feel like sweeping, and I'm really not trying to make this.
Why? Because women never lie, right?
No, women lie
Especially
all the
about
fucking
powerful
time.
people when they can
That's
have
not what we're
incentives.
doing here. No. Hold on. Okay, let's talk about Dershowitz and let's talk about Prince Andrew. Okay, so Prince Andrew settled out of court, meaning
Which
that
does
he
not mean
paid-
that he's guilty of any sex crimes at all, to be clear. It obviously doesn't mean that.
he's photographed over a teenager.
He's photographed
posing with his
standing-
arms over the teenager. He's holding a 16-year-old Virginia Giuffre like this in photos.
Okay.
And
yes,
you're,
there's
and you're
a
saying
photo
that
of
it's
his arm
illogical
around
to
her.
presume that they
Yes,
had sex.
yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm absolutely saying
How many
that
16-year-olds? I'm a
photo of
40-year-old
two
man. Do you
people-
know how many teenage girls I've had my arm around, or how many teenage girls I've been posing over doing a push-up? Zero
Okay.
teenage girls. Okay.
Okay.
So
That's
why
good.
is a 40-year-old man holding on to a teenage girl as if they were in a romantic liaison, and also in effectively a push-up position over a teenage girl? Do you have
I
a
have no
logical
idea. Does that mean that he raped her?
I don't know
Hold on,
any
so-
adult men who have done that.
Okay, so if I can find photos online of adult men with their arm around a teenage girl, we should assume that means that he raped her.
No, but clearly we have the capacity as human beings to read body language. 90% of communication is nonverbal. And so if the body language is romantic and the person is underage, why am I being asked to deny the evidence of my eyes?
I don't perceive the photos of the two of them standing there as romantic.
No, yeah.
Also, I'm not sure if we have you confirmed the dates of these photos either?
Why as a dickhead YouTuber do I have to verify all of the age?
You're
Hold
just
on.
making the claims.
Why do I have to verify the dates and
You don't.
ages when the Department of Justice, it's their responsibility to do so, and they are refusing to do so in violation of federal law?
Again, I would need evidence that they're refusing to date these photos of Virginia Giuffre. And again, you should know that a lot of the this is the link that you sent me is evidence that they are refusing to date the photo of Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre.
No, this is your earlier question about the courts not releasing Epstein files and the courts redirecting it back to DOJ because DOJ is legally compelled to comply with the Epstein laws.
Okay, so you're saying that that's also the case in dating the photo of Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew.
No, I'm saying that there's a ton of evidence that you guys are ignoring. For instance, Leslie Wexner was listed as an indictable co-conspirator. So the FBI believed that they had sufficient evidence to bring criminal charges against a half dozen people, but did not do so. And they redacted Leslie Wexner's name from the files.
So arguably, Connor, let's say that the Epstein maximalist position is not true. Let's say it's not true, that there was not a pedophilic blackmail ring going on, that Epstein, like Pisco said, that Epstein was guilty of essentially trafficking or procuring young adult women and underage women for sexual contacts and massages and stuff, and Ghislaine was helping procure these women. If that is the truth of, which by the way, that's heinous enough. We can all be upset enough about that, right? So if that case is true, then yes, I also believe that there is no reason to expose all the emails and text messages and history of all people who may have been associated with this man, because it is already ruining innocent people's lives. Innocent people who didn't.
Your opinion in reference to this so doesn't matter. It's almost funny. And the reason why is because the Congress and the Senate have already passed the law.
Yes, I agree.
Stating that
I agree because everyone
who is not a victim is exposed in these files.
And did you know that the victims include uncles and cousins and brothers of the alleged victims? That the 1,000 victims that the government talks about, that list includes family members of alleged victims. Are you aware of that?
I don't care. Redact their names and release the body of texts. So, for instance, hold on. What's shocking to me is
what's the reason to redact the names of all the people who have already come publicly on the record? All of these people are adults now. Many of them have come on the record themselves. So, what is the purpose in redacting their names in the files at all?
I don't care. Don't redact their names for all I give a shit.
Okay.
I want the information. So for instance, hold on. This is one of the things that bugs me about your position. So there was a grand jury indictment out of New York where this law is saying the only redactions that are acceptable are the names of victims. And instead of doing that, they just blacked out the text. That's not acceptable. That's not in compliance with the law. So whatever the narrative is, it should be blank made a sworn written statement on June 17th, 2008, stating to the effect that Jeffrey Epstein and alleged co-conspirator, blah, 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 sex trafficked them to New York, blah, 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 blah. That's the way the documents should be coming out, and they're not. And the fact that that doesn't alarm you more is, I think, a disconnect in this conversation.
No, because I think this is basically a politically motivated moral panic. So I think that essentially I think that no one would have been harmed further if none of these 3 million documents came out. If you're going to release them, release all of them. Don't play these games. Don't feed the conspiracy theorists. So I'm with you that if you're going to release them, transparency is the best way to do that. But I don't think a single person has been helped or saved from harm by releasing literally any of this. I think this is a politically motivated, on both sides of the aisle, weapon that people are using against each other. It's a moral panic now. Now a good portion of the country and our elected officials believe that there was some criminal pedophile ring essentially controlling the world, if not just our government and our closest allies. So I think no one has been helped by any of this. I think it's just essentially deranged our population. Can you name who has benefited from any of this?
Yes,
tangibly?
I can. Yes,
I can.
Can
you name a victim who has tangibly benefited from any of this?
Yes, I can. Well, number one, Virginia Giuffre was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for her silence in reference to Alan Dershowitz. So yeah, she materially benefited from the situation.
You can say that. You can say for her silence.
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz said, she alleged that Alan Dershowitz,
and that was never adjudicated.
She alleged that Alan Dershowitz, Prince Andrew, and Ehud Barak all had sex with her, and she was paid probably a few $100,000 to a few $1 million to do it.
Just pause.
But that doesn't mean that the documents coming out help her.
Sorry,
I thought the question was how did the question was. How did the release of the documents help
people? I can answer that question as well.
She's dead, so
that is my
question. It
doesn't
really help her directly.
Well, right, but
I was
saying the exposure of the incident obviously materially benefit Virginia Giuffre. So let me make a separate assertion. So I think that, interestingly enough, because you were trying to parse this out earlier, so I'll just do it for you because it might not be something. It's so unpopular to articulate that I think that you can only be like a vociferous critic and articulate this. So I'll be a vociferous critic and articulate it. These teenage girls in the 80s and 90s were getting pimped out and doing so on a semi-voluntary basis. They were minors, which means that they didn't have the legal ability to volunteer.
Some of them were minors, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, so for instance, there was the I would have to look her up. But effectively, there was the gal who did allege forcible sexual assault from Donald Trump. But the way that she stated the relationship began, and I think this is true of a majority of their relationships, is effectively that they were flown out for modeling gigs and teen beauty pageants and teen competitions. Then they stayed later and they partied. And then after they partied, at a certain time at night, things got a little creepy. And effectively, the models were encouraged to sleep with rich and powerful men in order to clout,
which young girls,
money, job opportunities, whatever.
Which young girls could never be internally motivated to do, of course, right? That has to come from external pressure.
Well, no. Like, obviously, if a 17-year-old girl goes, oh, that's a billionaire, and he said he would give me a job, so I'll just give him a blowy in order to try to get
do we even have evidence? Do we even have evidence of the quid pro quo here of like, I'm going to give you a job?
No, I mean, alleged in sworn written testimony about Jeffrey Epstein, probably dozens of times it's alleged, because Jeffrey Epstein was friends with Les Wexner, and Les Wexner was the owner of Victoria's Secret. So anyways,
Okay, so in this
the
case,
thrust of this, rather than getting boiled down in minutia, I think that the point that this doesn't have any positive impact going forward. No, I think that it has a positive impact to articulate the way in which these girls were abused against the legal system of the United States. That
was already that was already articulated, right? Because that was literally what he was put in jail for in the Florida case, was for bringing underage girls to his home. The fact
that you think a single charge of soliciting sex from a 17-year-old is appropriate in this case is fucking mind-blowing to me.
Okay, and lifetime registry on a sex offender list. I mean, that affects literally
and
every
during the
single
year and a half that he served, he was on work release where he was outside of the prison 60 to 70 hours a week. So okay, hold on. That's appropriate. So hold on. If this guy was like a redneck trailer trash piece of shit, and he was alleged to have sexually abused dozens of teenage girls, but they were only able to convict him of one, he's not getting a year and a half work release. That's so, to be clear, of.
And the one girl that he was convicted of said that she consented to it. She said that the difficulties relating to this fiasco were with the legal implications that it brought upon her.
This is the crux of the argument. If it's such a nothing burger, then why is the Trump administration not releasing the grand jury affidavits and sworn written statements of the victims from the Florida case?
Then why didn't the Biden administration do it? This is the problem. This is why this is just
so obvious. No. Because I'll tell you why, Tali. I'll tell you. Because it embarrassed Peter Thiel. Because it embarrassed Bill Gates. Because it embarrassed rich and powerful men who are donors to both sides. That's why.
Okay, so then everyone is okay. So that even that, I'm sorry, I don't.
The grand jury. The grand jury testimony from Florida is available to read. I read it. It's there. It's out.
Okay, so you have sworn written testimony from 17 victims.
Not the 17, but there's there's part of the grand jury testimony, especially with the person that he ended up taking the plea deal over. That one's there and you can read. I don't know about all the other affidavits. I don't think all the affidavits, I don't know if they all went to the grand jury or not. Because you can write an affidavit outside of like a grand jury. So I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying I don't know.
That by itself is
Wait, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Jinx.
How is that a sweep? Wait, I'm not.
If you have the sworn written statements of victims to an alleged crime, and then you refuse to charge said crime, and those files are not publicly available, that's
hold on.
Crazy.
So let me say something really quickly.
There can be issue. Hold on, just wait 1 second.
Yeah.
There can be issues that they find with certain people. I'm not saying all 17. That seems like a high number to just completely discount. I would agree with that. But there can be a reason where you would take a sworn affidavit and look into it and not be able to find it credible or find that it lined up, or like there's reasons that you could not take that and charge a crime that exists in the world. Yes. Okay. So I just want to make sure we're on the right page. I agree that 17 is a lot of affidavits to ignore. And that there could be something up with that. I don't know.
There are 17 total them are. In, and all are totally right. Then that would be reason to wonder. But here, I'm just going to lay out really quickly, and this is where Kay and I slightly differ in disposition. But the reason that essentially I have such a hard time buying so much of this is because I am anti-conspiratorial by nature. Everything that you are positing requires a whole bunch of people to agree to lie and to engage in this nefarious thing, which I would need to understand what is the motivation for these people, for all of these people to implicate themselves in a crime, in a cover-up of horrific sex crimes, because that's what we're talking about. And I have seen no evidence that all these disparate individual elected officials and judges and all of these people would be willing to sacrifice their lives, essentially, if any of this were to ever come out. For what? For why?
No, it's only one man. It's Alex Acosta. And so Alex Acosta doing a plea deal.
It's not only, hold on, no, sorry,
gets...
Connor. It's not only one man, because let's say Alex Acosta was the only one who could make the decision, let's say, right? And all of these other people who have read these sworn affidavits and have read all of this stuff, they disagree with him. They know the true horrors of what happened, right? So all of them are staying silent now, 20 years later. Why?
They haven't been silent. They've been bitching for years. They've been bitching for decades. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, the head of the Palm Beach County. Hold on. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office has been bitching about this for decades.
Yes, that they were displeased that the federal government essentially taking priority in some aspects, and also that they felt that he didn't get a long enough sentence. Okay, they felt like what you're saying, essentially the sweetheart.
So they haven't been silent.
They haven't come out with the evidence that you're talking about. This would be
they're not allowed to because it's a part of the federal indictment.
And none of them okay, so you're saying so it's a federal indictment. So Connor, if you were required by law, okay, to not release it's part of your job. You're in the military, whatever, right? You got to follow the chain of command. You are required by law. You're telling me that you're not going to come out as a whistleblower and say, fuck it, I'll go to jail if I have to. There were hundreds of little girls who were raped. You're saying that you would just sit back and say, oh, well, it's my job duty. I'm just gonna be a little pissed about it.
It depends on the
we have to weigh out the severity of the claims that people are making and with the actions that are associated.
Do you think in the 80s and 90s? Okay, especially.
Yeah, I think there would have been. I think there would have been at least one person whose conscience would not have been able to handle if they truly believed that hundreds of little girls were raped by this man. Yes, at least one person would have said, "Fuck it, I'm going to jail. Here it is." Yes, I firmly believe that.
But what if here's the other thing though. What if it's a legal issue, but because of the cultural context of the time, it's not as big of a moral issue? So for instance, hold on, let me articulate this. In the 1980s, prior to the passage of domestic violence battery was viewed as an in-home deal. Hold on, let me articulate
we're talking
this.
about
trying to talk.
We're talking about 2003 and 2004, though. We're not talking about the 1980s, and we still
a majority of the victims, I almost guarantee, are from the 1980s and 1990s.
Okay, but he was tried in the 2000s.
And a majority of the allegations stem from the 1980s and 1990s.
Yes, okay, but the people involved in charging him and all of this stuff they're not stuck in a time machine. They're not frozen in glass in the 1980s. They've lived through now the 90s and the 2000s, okay? So they're coming into this era.
Let me articulate the problem before you even get to it.
Times were different then. It's 2026. Everyone has been brought up to date, and what we find socially acceptable now, why are they still holding their tongue? Why haven't they just come out and released it? There would be a whistleblower out there.
That's a great question. And by the way, hold on, Tali bots.
Then what's your answer?
My answer is that they are. The malicious compliance, what's so interesting about the Epstein files is consistently, I think it's partially incompetence, to be honest, but I also think that there are malicious compliers who are part of the FBI who redact in line with Trump administration guidance and instead of in the statute guidance, but then they leave enough information in order to contradict their own sources for the files to be pulled. And so this again,
you're also now, but you're impugning another conspiracy. So now it's the redactors who are all together.
And this is also verifiable.
You are. Now it's the redactors who are getting together, not listening to the law, listening more to the Trump administration's
that's just correct.
Whatever guidelines. And then they're putting out this stuff so that it'll contradict this and will throw people off the scent. That's another conspiracy, Connor.
No.
It just is. It's a much smaller scale one, but it is.
You're misunderstanding. The law says one thing. It says release all 6 million files with victims' information redacted. Okay, that's what they're stating. What the Trump administration
with alleged victims. So that also means that we redact the names of people who may have completely made shit up. who may have been out for money, who may have been deranged and mentally
That
ill.
has nothing
So that
to do
means
with
we
the
all
thrust of my point.
No, it certainly does, right? Because then we're allowing out. Okay, so let's hear this story about this the European president who raped this girl and then turned into a werewolf overnight and then ate her, and then her friend watched and gave this sworn testimony. All the information gets to stay, but we never get to criticize the source of the complaint. That's the problem too. This is part of the problem in releasing all of these files in this way.
That's a separate point. Okay.
The point related to redactions, but okay.
Okay. 6 million files are supposed to be released exclusively with alleged victims and victims' information redacted. The Trump administration has not complied with this law that was passed, I think, almost unanimously in both houses with a veto-proof majority. They have not complied with this law.
But yeah.
Okay. The shouldn't have been, I don't care anymore. It's done.
Yeah, of course. Sure.
Okay. So if a law is passed,
they should comply with they should comply with the law, even though it's going to continue to harm
should they comply. The question is, how are they complying? So for instance, the indictable co-conspirators. These are people that the FBI believed that there was sufficient evidence to charge these 6 people with being a part of the sex trafficking ring. The members who were listed as indictable co-conspirators were also redacted from the files. But then what I would say is the malicious compliance component is that they weren't redacted in other locations sufficiently that people were able to uncover who the indictable co-conspirators were using effectively a checkerboard of information that they shouldn't even have to do. We should not have to be playing Clue to figure out who the indictable co-conspirators are. And yet we have been able to.
I mean, arguably,
people
we
at
shouldn't
FBI
know.
and DOJ are not following Trump guidance.
Arguably, we shouldn't know who these unindicted co-conspirators were because they weren't indicted.
Fuck that. You think a cop,
you can say fuck that, but okay, again,
and a state attorney, and a state attorney say, we have enough to go after this person. And then somebody else says, nah.
Hold on. Do you have evidence that do you have evidence? No, sorry. Do you have evidence that someone came in and said nah? Because my understanding is often these types of situations are set up so that you can get information
and they're not
from
indicted.
These people.
Somebody said no. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so who said no, Connor?
Probably a state attorney.
But probably. So we don't know. We're guessing.
Well,
like things go from indictable to unindictable.
Who would say no is a state attorney.
Okay, so everyone
from indictable to unindictable with new information. So that's
okay,
like...
but hold on. You guys are alleging that this is like a crazy pants conspiracy, but it's not. What is that? Lunch? Amazing. Thank you. Sorry, my mom's being extra nice today. She got me lunch. Well, okay. My mom is being extra nice in general, and she wants you to know that she's not just being nice today. She's being nice in general.
I believe that.
Got it.
So, hold on. Let's talk about this real quick. We were at like laws, indictments, unindictable to indictable. So you're saying that I'm alleging a crazy conspiracy theory, but I'm not. And the reason why is because there's an analog here. Okay. I am the most vociferous Hunter Biden critic in the online politosphere, and my chat fucking hates me for it. Okay. They hate me for it. But what the IRS whistleblowers allege during the Hunter Biden prosecution is that the state attorney's office and the DOJ had a myriad of felonies and misdemeanors that were textbook violations that could have been charged, went to trial, indicted, and turned over. And Hunter Biden, if his name was not Biden, he would have been fucked. But because the prosecutor wanted to play footsie with the defense team, all these indictable crimes were allowed to lapse past the statute of limitations. And these are not low-level IRS employees who got on the job a year and a half ago. They're people who have been prosecuting public corruption and organized crime for decades. So you're asking me, can a state attorney who wants to play footsie with political figures not charge a crime? My answer is absolutely the fuck yes. And we've seen an analog in the Hunter Biden case.
Sure. That wasn't my question, though. And even just to expand that out more, I think there are several reasons why they could choose not to prosecute a case, right? It doesn't just require wanting to play footsies with some type of political figure. You would agree with that, right? There could be
sure.
myriad
Maybe there's
reasons,
national security
right?
concerns.
Maybe there's national security concerns. Maybe in this individual case, like there could, you take into consideration the person in front of you, the severity of the crimes, their likelihood, like all of these things could have been weighed in theory in their decision to prosecute these crimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't trust their judgment. I don't trust their judgment, and I want to know what the judgment was at the time, and I also want to have them comply with the law that was passed near unanimously by the Congress. That's what I want. So if you want to tell me there's a myriad reasons why Alex Acosta and this other state attorney who eliminated these charges, there's a myriad reasons why they could have dismissed this case before it went to trial. I want to hear those reasons in compliance with the law that my Congress passed. And if they're good reasons, maybe I'll change my tune. But if they're terrible reasons, I'm not changing my tune at all.
Do you see this case being this obvious exception because it has just like caught the attention and frenzy of so many people? Do you see possible drawbacks, possible issues with this type of transparency, if we want to call it that, of our legal system? Do you see how this, like, if this is how we handled all cases, how this could have like severely negative implications on innocent people?
I live in Florida, and we have the Sunshine statutes, which effectively means that every case at the state level is public. And no, I don't care about the second order and third order effects. I prefer transparency to the state invoking some sovereign right to privacy and then fucking clamming shit up. No, if it's alleged that people are bad people, but then the state doesn't have enough to indict them, I would rather the allegations be out there than be sealed for some maintenance of public reputation.
Well, why is it maintenance of public reputation?
What's that?
Why is it necessarily maintenance of public? Sorry,
I mean, there could be another reason. So for instance, like with the this is a complaint about the Sunshine statutes. The Sunshine statutes, whenever you file like an injunction against somebody, you have to list your telephone number, your current telephone number and address. So technically, if the person wanted to harass you, they have your telephone number and they have your address. You just made it easier for them to stalk you. But what happens is if they stalk you, you document it, you go back to the court, and then the court punishes them for stalking. So yeah, there's plenty of deleterious, and there's probably murders that have happened as a result of this. There are probably people who have domestic violence injunctions who see the current listed address and phone number of their victims, and they've traveled to that address and they've murdered the victims. It's probably happened.
So according to my handy dandy AI, the Sunshine laws, and they're pulling from the Florida bar here, so that's the only source cited here. Sunshine laws don't apply to unindicted co-conspirators themselves. The laws govern meetings, records, conduct of public boards, commissions, and agencies, not private individuals, even if they are involved in criminal activity. So it sounds like what you're calling for, there are still protections against people who their name may be raised in some way in some type of legal action, but the court has determined for whatever reason, maybe nefarious ones that you're insinuating, maybe good ones, maybe the evidence doesn't flesh this out. But so even according to the laws that you're holding up as the gold standard in Florida, that would not have revealed the names of the unindicted co-conspirators in Jeffrey Epstein's case.
I'll tell you right now that.
So do you want the laws to go further?
No, I'll respond to exactly what you're saying. Orange County, or I could go to the Orange County Clerk of Court's website right now. If you knew somebody who was in trouble in Orange County, if I knew their name, I could search it. I could click on it. Every single entry in the file, motions to dismiss, witness statements, all that bullshit It's there. I can click through it. I can scroll through it. Not just that, I can also do a Freedom of Information Act request for any case.
Well, yeah,
any
but that's
city
always
or county,
existed.
state. Hold on, I'm not
That
done
has
yet.
always existed for you.
I can do a FOIA request for any city or county, and I can pull reports for decades, and I can get unredacted, sworn written affidavits with the victims' names. Or alleged,
you can maybe
or
do that. You can maybe do that. So FOIA is not, it's not an automatic process. Someone still has to determine whether they're going to release that information. So you can maybe get that. But again, going through the FOIA process,
the Epstein law.
Going through the FOIA process
Epstein law
is
wasn't
separate.
an automatic process.
Going through the FOIA process is separate. Yeah, go ahead, Kay.
Sorry, if something's not indicted, then it doesn't make its way to the court system. So like some of these filings are not there, right? Like not every.
I don't even know if that's true. So for instance,
well, according to the Florida bar, that's correct.
Well, I don't know the way that you asked the AI. I'm telling you what I know. So there is a case number that like, so for instance, like let's say that we're talking about the Lake County jurisdiction. Lake County jurisdiction, whenever you do a call, you could literally go to somebody's house for a call because their dog was barking. That generates a call number. That call number, if it becomes a case, is oftentimes transposed as the case number. Then all of the sworn written affidavits, all the photos, all of the body camera footage, everything is accessible via that case number within that jurisdiction, particularly at the police department. And then the only place that I'm going to leave room for you, because the state attorneys have access to all of that. State attorneys have access to all of that. So the only way that I would presume that some of the information could be lost is if the state attorney, in order to go to a grand jury indictment, omits unnecessary evidence, because there's like hours of body camera footage that has nothing to do with the case. So you wouldn't include that in the judicial process, right? You would omit that stuff. But the reason why sworn written affidavits not being a part of the judicial process freaks me the fuck out is because that's the evidence I need. You're saying that like you need evidence of malfeasance. In order for me to get the evidence of malfeasance, I need the sworn written affidavits from the people in the Florida case from the early thousands that was sworn, that was either sealed or not transposed by Alex Acosta. That's what I need.
But don't you see there's like I don't know the proper word for this. I'm sorry. It's early. I don't have my all words here, but it's a little bit of a, like, you're doing, respectfully, a little bit of the conspiracy minded thing, which is lack of evidence is also evidence for my theory, right? So if we just had these unsealed 17 sworn affidavits, then we would know, right? So let's say, for all we know, these 17 sworn affidavits are like written in Mandarin, and they're just like instructions on how to operate a toaster, right? Okay, so maybe actually the information that would come out wouldn't help your case at all, Connor, right? That's number one. Number two, maybe it does in theory. Maybe the 17 signed affidavits come out, and again, they're just the most horrific thing ever. This person raped me and then ate my friend. Okay, the cannibalism, all of it.
Yeah, but it wasn't deemed credible.
Still. Exactly. So even just having that information doesn't actually necessarily get us any closer to the truth. It feels like like the conspiracists really have the upper hand here, right? Because lack of evidence is evidence for the conspiracy.
What fact have I asserted in reference to Jeffrey Epstein that you think is either like in dispute or even disproved by the facts that we currently have?
Well, I mean, okay. Well, you call Donald Trump a rapist. You refer to him. Yeah. So that is certainly in dispute.
I think he's an ephebophilic rapist based off of available information.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that's certainly in dispute. So that's more.
It's in dispute for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, your question to me, Connor, was what have I claimed that's in dispute? That was your specific question to me. Is what is in dispute that I've said so far. So.
Yeah, but that's not Jeffrey Epstein. That's Donald Trump.
So these things are totally distinct?
No, of course not. But I'm asking you, what
my understanding
is it's Jeffrey Epstein that is in dispute?
So my understanding is that it's Jeffrey Epstein's relationship to all of these powerful people that feeds these conspiracies and makes this so interesting to people at all, right? Because I mean, you would agree, right? Like, so like the people in your chat, for example, the people in your chat are way more concerned about like the Jeffrey Epstein, who may have singularly abused a bunch of young women. You would agree that women in your chat, or sorry, not the women, the people in your chat are way more concerned about that than, for example, the rape gangs going on in the UK, right? So it's not just about protecting victims. There is a very clear
I yell at them about the rape gangs as well.
I know you do. I know you do. I know. I'm making the point about your chat, not you. I'm not impugning any of this onto you. Yeah, but my point is that people. Okay.
I'm kidding. I love you, chat.
I don't. Yeah. My point though is that these things, it's not just about like me bringing up Donald Trump is relevant to the claims on the Jeffrey Epstein case, because people are not just upset about the Jeffrey Epstein case because there are potential victims. A lot of people I don't want to say they don't care about victims, because like in theory they do. And if they were ever confronted with one in person, they would care. And if it was their cousin or their sister or whatever, they would care. But these people are not motivated to do all of this because of these precious victims, right? They are very happy to turn away from other victims that don't feed them the same convenient political narrative, or especially if it counters a convenient political narrative for them, right? Like religion of peace and open borders and stuff like that.
You cannot. This is a statement that has brought me a lot of peace in the online politosphere. You cannot hold movements accountable for hypocrisy. It's impossible, especially in the American binary political tribalism. If there's a liberal who makes some statement of principle, another liberal is going to make a contradictory statement. Same thing with libertarians, fascists, communists, whatever. Political tribes are just inherently hypocritical because they're made up of many people who have many different principles and competing principles. Hold on, I'm not done yet. You can hold individuals accountable for hypocrisy. So, for instance, if I was unilaterally alarmed about the Jeffrey Epstein pedophilic sex trafficking ring, but I showed no alarm about racist sexual grooming gangs in the United Kingdom, then you can say, hey, Connor, it seems like your care for sex crimes against teenagers is only as serious as your political tribalism. And you would be correct. But that actually has no bearing on whether or not you should be alarmed about Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking or the grooming gangs in the UK. The truth is you should probably be alarmed by both.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yes, I agree with that. Right. However, I can highlight the hypocrisy because I think the hypocrisy is at the core of why people are getting this whole Epstein thing wrong. Right. Because I do think this is being used as a political weapon, and people are swept up in a moral panic over something that was bad enough, but they've now added layers and layers of like deranged fantasy on top of.
If you're arguing with and unfortunately I know this position is popular, so I might even be able to articulate the position that you're fighting against. So if you're saying that Kyle Kulinski implying that the Iranian regime change war is solely motivated by simultaneously Israel having sexual blackmail on Donald Trump to force him into the war, and then also to distract from the conspiracy theory surrounding the Epstein files, then I think you have more than enough wiggle room in there to call Kyle Kulinski a fucking idiot. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't even need that. I don't even need that to call Kyle Kulinski a fucking idiot.
But I don't think that I am participating in the same level of idiocy that Kyle Kulinski is.
You're not.
No, and I would.
Yeah, I have my own flavor of idiocy.
Correct.
Yeah. And
Correct.
while I may not agree with you, like it is not.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not as much of a bummer. Like you are not. Yeah, you are not Kyle Kulinski.
But what's the so is the bummer thing? Is the bummer thing that I'm buying into the moral panic? Is it because it's useful to Kyle Kulinski idiot types that I give them ammunition? What's the bummer part of it?
That you're bringing it up when it's likely not the contributing factor to the war in Iran. Like, it's not even like it was a conversation.
Well, I mean,
about
that's why I said it was a 70% meme, but like, there's absolutely
but you're still choosing to. Yeah, right. So there is a part of you that believes that, and if I had to guess, Kay doesn't believe that. Neither do I.
There's a part of me. But I don't even think I was insinuating. I actually don't think that the blackmail is most relevant. The insinuation, which I probably should have clarified, is more that a war, a Middle Eastern and North African conflict, substantially distracts from the zeitgeist in reference to the Epstein files. That's like the more of the implication. Excuse me, the implication I was trying to make.
Yeah, I think that's like boring. I think that's low hanging fruit, frankly. And people have been, first of all, I don't even know how true that is. People have been saying this with everything that Trump does, right? Actually, frankly, before the Epstein stuff, right? So even in Trump term 1, right? When I was a super partisan Democrat and progressive radical, essentially, is what I was. Everything that Donald Trump does was seen as something to distract from another. And that could be true in these smaller ways about specific instances, right? But that's how a lot of left-wing people frame essentially anything that Donald Trump does, right? Is he's trying to give you a story over here so you won't look over here, which again can lead you open to conspiratorial thinking. If that's the framework that you plug into every action that Donald Trump takes, well, okay, then what does he not want us to look at, right? That leads people to a conspiratorial framework of approaching things, number one. But yeah, I just don't think people have been saying this about the Epstein stuff in particular, about everything that Donald Trump has done in Trump 2.0, the Venezuela, tariffs, literally everything. People say he's doing this so that you guys will stop talking about Epstein. And to a certain extent, that has failed, right? It is, as we all know, I mean, it is the Trump base or, people on the right side of the aisle who cared about all this Epstein stuff at all, frankly. The left was not concerned with any of this. And so it's not like...
Which, by the way, I found alarming, but continue.
Sure, yeah, but so it's not like I guess my point is, I don't think that even starting a war with Iran would enable him to outrun these accusations. That people are so deranged about this, rightfully or not rightfully. They're so passionate. That would be the less charged word, because let's say it's rightfully. People are so passionate about this stuff that it hasn't seemed to go away yet. That's A. And then B, because of all the things that you laid out. Sure, yeah. Certainly. But all of the geopolitical reasons that you laid out just make so much more sense that it's like, why even throw that in there? But you threw it in there because you believe it, and that's fair enough. You're not being
well, I mean, I think I also threw it in there because I was also trying to joke a little bit. So for instance, like if what happens in this space, right? If you exclusively have conversations about geopolitical reality and tariffs and logistics and all that kind of bullshit, I mean, you're going to lose 2/3 of your audience because they're just going to get fucking bored, right? You have to throw in a little bit of sex and blood and violence and drama and interpersonal beef and all that kind of bullshit. So yeah, the Epstein thing.
That's why Kay and I strip at the halfway mark of all of our
nice. Okay. All right. Yeah. We have plenty of Gooners in chat, so I'll start raiding into you guys so the Gooners can get theirs. But the but the thing about it is, I think that you are consistently stating that there is a conspiracy mindset that is leading me down bad paths or leading other people down bad paths. But I think that my frustration with that is if I go down a conspiracy path and then I find something that is factually inconvenient to the person I'm accusing of bad behavior, and then their option is just to continue to accuse me of conspiracy thinking, well, that doesn't exactly dismiss my concerns. So for instance, going back to the Hunter Biden thing, when I have because these are the facts as I understand them. There were two gentlemen who worked for the IRS as seasoned investigators of criminal actions of both organized crime and public corruption for decades. Up until now, they were model employees of the IRS. They get involved with the Hunter Biden corruption case. They have basically tax fraud violations that are headshots, like provable crimes for tax evasion in 2014 and 2015. They also have charges from like 17, 18, and 19. And they go to they whistleblow and they go to Congress and they say, if Hunter Biden's last name was not Biden, this would have been indicted, charged, prosecuted, convicted, and incarcerated within a matter of months. But because this guy's name is Biden, the prosecution is playing footsie with it. So when people say, oh, well, you're engaged in conspiratorial thinking, that doesn't dismiss any of the facts that I've outlined. And then what's even more alarming is they say, well, defer to the justice system. Just trust the system to play out. Trust Congress to play out. And you know what ended up happening when I trusted the system to play out? Weirdly enough, it went my way. Merrick Garland, despite trying to be like as objective as possible, he still ended up charging and being accused of sweeping for the Bidens at the same time. He ended up charging felonies and misdemeanors related to this case, resulting in Hunter Biden being basically up for federal indictment and incarceration, and his father had to pardon him. But nobody who was accusing me of conspiracy brain ever updated their tune. They never said, shit, he did get charged with felonies and misdemeanors. Oh my God, the FBI whistleblowers were totally correct. Nobody fucking changed their tune.
Let me jump in because I think maybe you'll hear this differently, or like maybe this will be an inroad of where we can our minds can meet a little bit.
Hold on, I gotta tell somebody to kill themselves. Just Julius, kill yourself, okay? Because Merrick Garland literally was going to charge felonies, and Hunter Biden had to take a fucking a pardon in order to avoid incarceration. So eat a barrel of dicks. Don't tell me to read shit when you fucking haven't read anything. Sorry. Anyways, go ahead.
That was beautiful. So everything that you just laid out makes total sense to me, and I want to agree and acknowledge that yes, like. Okay, my brain's going in 5 different directions. So let me try to make the clearest point first. That is all very plausible, and I think like let's put our like reasonable adult cap on here, right? So, would someone want to avoid charging for these types of crimes, right? When it's the president's son, there might be political pressures, right? All of these things. That to me is more reasonable and understandable than making that same calculation about heinous sex crimes. I think we have to, if we're just like considering where people might feel pressure and where they're willing to draw their own personal moral line, because as you point out, even Merrick Garland, right, was not willing to play that game, basically, even though the level of the crimes that we're talking about are much less heinous and much less significant than child rape and sex trafficking, right? And so the mindset that you're explaining for the people involved in charging Hunter Biden, to me, is more reasonable and less conspiratorial than all the people who would have had to be involved in disregarding heinous sex crimes for a much less explicitly clear political advantage or pressure there.
Okay. The fastest way to get me off of my conspiracy soapbox is to comply with the law. I hate to put it like that because I could argue back and forth with you, and the truth is that I think they call it like falsifiable or whatever. I think I have non-falsifiable claims, right? You cannot prove me wrong because I am making assertions. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But I'm making assertions that you can't disprove because we have partial evidence and not full evidence. Okay.
But so arguably, we couldn't disprove it, Connor. Arguably, we couldn't disprove any. You just kind of admitted it. It's unfalsifiable. So even if all of everything came out and we could prove that everything came out entirely unredacted, that still might not be enough to disprove it to you if you see it as unfalsifiable, unless you're saying that it's just temporarily unfalsifiable because you believe that the specific redactions or the specific files that we haven't seen yet contain all of the damning information that would confirm the conspiracy. Is that the assertion?
I think the strongest one in reference to that is going to be the Florida affidavits. However, hold on, let me articulate this for you real quick. There are facts in contention that there's facts that are real, or I believe are real based off of the sources that I have. And then there's the inferences made off of those facts. So the fact that Jeffrey Epstein worked with British military industrial complex people in order to facilitate the Saudi Arabian deal in the 1980s, until proven incorrect, to me, that is a truthful fact. The fact that he worked with Adnan Khashoggi, a weapons arms trafficker in the Middle East and North Africa, in order to facilitate the Iran-Contra affair and the Safari Club, that is a fact that has been asserted that has not been disproven. Okay.
Okay.
So
But like,
you would
bring
have
us back to like the sex crime pyramid here, because again, like, yes, this guy was
well, hold on. I
just
haven't even gotten that far.
objectively.
So,
okay.
So the only thing that I'm trying to articulate here is the fact that Jeffrey Epstein had international intelligence and military's armed trafficking ties. That's the first.
That's never been in dispute, really. All of that was known before these files were released.
Okay, so let's say that is a fact. Okay.
That he was a well-connected, suspiciously well-connected. Yeah, bizarrely well-connected for any one individual, certainly.
Okay. Then here's a separate fact. Jeffrey Epstein has been accused of sex trafficking teenage girls for decades. And when he was sentenced by the state, it seemed like he got a very, very, very lenient sentence. That's the second fact. Now, what I would say that you guys are accusing me of doing, which is true, is that I'm taking one fact and I'm implying that they're related.
You're drawing lines where we don't have them.
Because he is getting preferential treatment for a criminal prosecution because he's well connected over here. And I'll agree with you that I cannot prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Right? I can't. I'm not psychic. I don't know Alex Acosta. I can't read his mind. I don't have the Florida grand jury transcript, or even if we have the Florida grand jury transcript, I don't have the sworn written affidavits of the victims. I can't get that far. But what I'm saying to you is I think my inferences are reasonable enough and obvious enough that I'm not trafficking in the same level of conspiracy mongering that other people are.
You are not as crazy as the craziest people. Yeah. No, undeniable that you are not as crazy as the craziest among us.
Okay. Then that's really where I wanted to get. I don't want to disappoint Kay. And I want, if I'm going to be viewed as, if I'm going to be viewed as a rabid conspiracy theory idiot freak, then I want to be classified as my own distinct version of that.
You're one of one.
I want Kay to hate me for me. Okay. Not for what other people are doing with what I'm saying. Hate me for what I say.
Yes, and had I could have made a more succinct, or maybe not succinct, a clearer statement in chat. Me,
I'm sensitive.
All to say, yes, and like, so am I, on certain topics, right? So I might just be a little.
If somebody, if I have a veteran,
the whole thing came after, I think. I don't know that there was like other talk about Israel right before that. So it's in a melange of issues, and not just you. It was like possibly something like Pisco had said, and so all to say, I am glad to. No,
I jumped into
your logic does not flow from the Kyle Kalinske school of thought, and as long as it's not coming from exactly there, that's good.
No, I jumped into a rhetorical political bear trap for the chat's entertainment. That's what I did. I was like, oh, is this a mess? Can I make this messier? Boom. And then I jumped into the bear trap, but I jumped into it hopefully for some people's entertainment.
Well, you should know, Connor, that our audience here is made up exclusively of the most based grill hottest in your
Good. Yeah, we need to not only do we need to grow together, but we need to, build that community, because frankly, like the far left wing is obviously driving me crazy because I think they're having way too much influence on the left. The far right wing has been driving me crazy because I think they're doing a bunch of evil, nefarious shit. So actually having like sane center left, center right people who are trying to piece the world apart earnestly because they actually care about things. That's more the people that I want to associate with than political tribalists who just want to make money off of the world's suffering.
Yeah. Or even if it's not about who want to make money off of the world's suffering, there's just a lot of political tribalists.
Yeah,
sure, clout. Even if we like remove all of those self-serving things, there are a lot of people out there who are deranged. I mean, and it goes to the extent of, it's not just the creators, right? We see it's the chats too. It's the call-ins. If we talk about this whole sort of destiny arc, right, of like we need to be illiberal in the face of whatever. it's not just the people
so
who stand to
frustrated with
benefit.
that.
I know you are. No, I know you are. And Kay and I often talk about your chats like on our little stream here. But so it's not just the people who stand to personally financially benefit from this who are in this mindset. It's a lot of like everyday people who have kind of radicalized themselves in this way.
I think Steven has done, I'm hoping anyways. I'm hoping he's done enough of a good job to police his community in the past that I hope that most people are just venting or whatever. But if he had not gone to war with his chat in the past about like super
Many
heavy
times.
moderation in reference to Mr. Girl or Lavloon or whatever, then I actually would be worried that he had held on to so many deranged schizophrenics over time that eventually there would be a DGG like terrorist attack, unironically. Like there would just be somebody who got sick of like talking about it and they would go do it and then they would check their Discord and instead of having a trans roommate, they would be a DGGer. So that's where for me, that's so alarming. Well, especially with Charlie Kirk getting killed recently, that I want him to slow down.
Well, and that's alarming for me too. But even like short of that, even short of like some terrible, horrific, violent incident, it's still just not good. Deeply concerned. Yeah, like the negative polarization. I know it's like that's the most common thing to say. It's not an original thought, but like that is the crux of like our issues in America. Like we disagree so vehemently and we believe our opposition is evil. Yeah. It's like, how the fuck do you even get past that? So even if the radicalization never leads to harm against another person in the real world, I'm also concerned about the person sitting in their room stewing constantly, believing that they're neighbors, and the person who's checking them out at the supermarket all secretly hate them, are secret fascists, would kill their gay brother and their trans cousin. Like that is, and that's what I've been saying really since the beginning that I've started speaking on the internet, since my ideological turn, is all of this shit is so bad for the individual's mental health and our cultural landscape of like social cohesion and functioning. And it extends to the way our government's able to function, right? They are extraordinarily negatively polarized. So yes, I'm concerned about people going out and acting rashly and all of these things. But I'm really concerned about the American psyche. Really,
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm probably in complete lockstep on this part of what you articulated. Is the reason why I try to cultivate the community that I do, even though I am sensitive and I do ban people, is because I really want people who wake up every single day, go to work, take care of their family, take care of their communities, care about the world, but also know that they have a limited sphere of influence. And within their limited sphere of influence, they're trying to make it more positive. And I think as a result, we have disproportionately attracted people who, number one, financially support the channel, but also number two, seem to be, even if they're flawed people, they seem to be like really well intended. Like they care about the world and they're trying to take care of stuff. And that's already a cut above. I mean, I swear to God, 70% of Twitch and YouTube politics is just non-playable character piranha who are just trying to rip each other to shreds. So yeah, it's pretty bad out there. But what I would say,
sorry, can I say something really quickly just to expand on that?
Please.
Because I completely agree, but I want to challenge that a little bit, only because I completely agree. You really don't have like super crazy people, like these deranged. That's not your sphere at all. Whatever.
Or we keep them as pets.
Sure. Yeah. Even right. That's true.
They don't dominate the chat. Stuff, we just keep them as pets.
Yeah. But so I guess my only issue with what you're saying, and I agree, and frankly, I agree that these people are well-intentioned, and this can go for both sides of the aisle, but I think we're mostly talking about people who are like left of center generally right now in this like general internet sphere that we're all in, right? We are in a left of center internet sphere, even if the three of us are right of center, ideologically and whatever. But even amongst the well-intentioned, in fact, it's maybe worse in the case of the well-intentioned people, because they are because it's not nefarious, it's not whatever, like well-intentions kill. That's really an extreme and dramatic thing to say, but so much of what I see that went wrong with wokeism, is an overflowing of actual good intentions, an actual desire to make the world a better place, to make the world kinder and safer and all of these things. And it still can lead to really bad outcomes, right?
The path to hell. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
And
knew
you
I
were
wasn't,
saying, what is it?
coming up at
The most
myself.
delicious of moral treats or whatever it, like that saying.
Aldous Huxley's quote. I stole that
Yes.
from Chud Logic, but I do love it. It's like to
Yeah.
be able to destroy in good conscience, to be able to like something like that. It's like the most delicious of moral treats. And by the way, part of the reason why I feel that is because that the Marine Corps trained you that way. You are righteous. You are a crusader. You are totally correct. You don't need to care about the other side. Matter of fact, caring about the other side is weakness because it might breed a level of mercy that makes you hesitate in the moment of truth. It's this pure black and white thinking, and it's really attractive. Like, especially when you're like enraptured in it, like you're like, oh, I'm on a crusade. Let's do this. But then what happens, especially with a lot of warriors, is when they leave the war or they experience something that's morally gray, or they see somebody on their side do something that's morally messed up, it just shatters them spiritually because they could not believe that their side was capable of wrong or evil. And so you're really like, you're left with two psychological choices. You either cope for it and you make excuses for it, or you decide that the world is actually really complex and messed up, and even really good intended institutions can do horrible shit. But that requires a level of like nuance that not a lot of people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes sense to have that, like, when you're at war. You know,
right. It's like arguably necessary.
Part of a military team. Yeah. Like that's probably a good, a good premise to operate under for group cohesion and for safety and to make sure everybody's on the same page. But it's like taking that out into the real world,
disastrous. It will, the more we allow it to seize our zeitgeist, the worse it's going to get. So yeah, like I'm with y'all in lockstep, but it is 2:53. So I'm roughly 25 minutes over schedule. I do have a cold lunch that I need to eat. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage, I don't know how to rate on YouTube, but I'm going to encourage all of my remaining girl hottest to come over to you guys. So it's morally neutral with Kay and Tali bots. I'll just pull it up on YouTube and I'll spam it in the chat. But yeah, what do you guys, I'm going to go full screen again so you guys can talk, but can you tell whoever I got left? Oh shit, I still have 100 people left. Tell them about you and what you do and what you like and what you're trying to do on the internet.
Well, I'm Kay. You guys probably know me from chat. My channel is morally neutral, morally loaded. And Tali and I have just been having conversations online for the last, I don't know, it's a couple months now. And just kind of like discussing issues, trying to look at things from various sides. I don't know, but my goal is, I guess, to help people be more curious about how other people come to their political, political ideologies and political viewpoints, to encourage curiosity rather than, polarization.
Tali? Oh, beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm Talibots at Talibots. I don't post much on my page. We stream on Kay's stream, although I always say I'm going to get some stuff out there eventually. But yeah, you guys probably know me from the chat, maybe from my struggle session with the Live and Learn boys. Yeah, Kay and I are both former leftists, for lack of better terms here. And so we both kind of see ourselves as right of center now. We comment on, these same cultural political things that that all the people in this sphere are talking about. We talk about the Live and Learn episodes, and we talk about the Destiny debates, and we talk about the Connor debates and stuff like that. So you'll fit right in if you come over here. But yeah, we try to. We are, again, we're former leftists. We see ourselves as on the right, but I think I would like to believe that we have an abundance of empathy and understanding for the side that we came from, basically. And so we're not just like out and out left-wing bashers, but we're not hiding the fact that we would consider ourselves to be on the right either.
Cool. Yeah. No. Then what I did is, I might have actually linked it in your chat, but I also linked it in my chat. So I took the morally neutral or morally loaded with Kay and Tali bots. I did link that in my chat as well. So I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to go eat. I'm just going to go yap with my chat with the session, and then I'm going to end. And then hopefully you get a few extra souls to pop in and say hi and hang out.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Let's do it again. Let's expand the Girl Hottest Coalition, and let's fight the good fight, even though it sucks. And I can say that you're sweeping for a pedophile, and you can call me a conspiracy-brained idiot, and then we can laugh afterwards.
It would be even better if we don't have to talk about Epstein next time, because I think there's like so many more interesting things that the three of us could take.
Okay, then pick my chat bullies me to try to do more news and more geopolitical topics that are serious. I never take them seriously though, because as soon as I do, I take like a 20% metric hit. But the people who are in there are passionate about it. So yeah, let's talk about something serious next.
Cool. All right. Awesome.
All right, bye guys.
Take care,
Connor. Cool.
All right. Okay.
I love that. I love that we've been talking about Connor for like several weeks now. And like the claims of him, you know, being on the left, none of that stuff got him. But the Kay being disappointed in him about invoking the Epstein stuff in a conversation about the Iran war. That was enough to get him in. So now we know what it takes to get him into our chat too. So that's good.
Just tell him I'm disappointed in him next time.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
That'll do it. I wasn't even, you know, sometimes like there have been times in chat or like on stream, not necessarily from Connor always directly, but you know, something will come up or like a point, you know what I mean? And like you're like actually bummed. You're like, oh, you know, this was like a little bit more flippant because I didn't actually think he took it that seriously, you know. But I'm glad to be able to talk about it. I knew that we like really disagreed on the Epstein stuff overall. There are just some like, I don't know, leaps or inferences that I can't connect, you know, that like that, you know, that I can't get all the way to where he is.
Right. Or rather, I would just say like, it's not prudent to do so, right? It's just like, you know, because it just does feed those things. But I don't get any impression that he's being insincere or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Believing a lot of these connections, that's a pretty normative belief, frankly, whether I like that or not, you know, in our current zeitgeist. So that is what it is. But no, I do know. I get like sad too. It's like silly and it feels silly too. I remember I like tweeted this once at someone like I'm really disappointed by this, and I know how cringe it is to be this random stranger that you don't know online telling you that I'm disappointed by your view. And I still got people who are still shitting on me for it, even though I did the meta acknowledgement of how cringe the thing is. But it's a real feeling that I'm feeling. I don't need to voice it, right? I get that part too, but it is real. And so and I feel that sometimes, and I've said this already, maybe this will be a conversation for our next chat with Connor, but it's just some of the Israel stuff that he says to me feels flippant. It feels like it's giving a weapon to people when I don't, whatever. And so it disappoints me. But it's little stuff.
Yeah. You know, it is what it is, but like, Epstein is just, I don't know. It's like it's a painful topic in some ways, because it's just like I have such little interest in it, but also have some views on it. So you have to like get versed in it enough, but also there's millions of files and I don't have the wherewithal to go through to invest in it that much. So how like authoritative can you really be unless you're willing to spend a substantial amount of time researching it? And there's just too much, you know what I mean? There's more than I'm willing to like put in to I guess like have a position that's like super strong.
Well, yeah, and this is how conspiracy theories work, right? This is like the age-old thing. It's like you have to learn like so much to be able to counter, because a lot of conspiracies are kind of pulling at these disparate things. So you have to like become an expert to counter them, and even that might not be compelling enough to most people who are listening to it. So I'm with you there. And then of course this just comes with the the added load of being looked at some type of way, because you're seen as defending either pedophilia or a pedophile or something like that. And so this topic in particular makes it even harder to talk. I mean, there are there are tons of people who voice just the slightest skepticism of some part of the narrative or whatever, who are accused of swiping for pedophilia, swiping for child sexual abuse. So it makes it even harder to talk about.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I got like a few more minutes. Is there anything you want to touch on before we like wrap it up?
Well, I guess we can decide which direction we want to go in. I know we wanted to talk like about the destiny arc of the sort of does the left need to fight the right with explicit illiberalism, essentially. I'm interested in that conversation. I'm also interested in talking about this case of this college volleyball player who is, I believe, suing the school for basically there was a trans person who was on the team and living with them, and these girls didn't know that they were living with a male. And that seems to be the crux of her complaint here. But so I'm interested in talking about that too. Do you have one of those that sounds more appealing to you for now?
I think the Destiny Hutch, Destiny Connor conversation might be like a little bit longer to go into. And I have like 12 to 15 minutes. So if you want to touch on like the lawsuit one, let's do that. And then we can come back to that. I mean, I don't know if we'll see if we have more time this week to go over that, or next week, or whenever we can reconvene. Just because I think that there's like a little bit more there.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. That's probably going to be a longer one. And I should say, I haven't looked into any of the details of this case. I've literally just seen, I think it's like a Fox News interview, basically, of this young woman who I believe is the plaintiff in this case. But it's just already been interesting seeing the two sides on this issue and how they interpret the set of facts basically here. And I think it's complicated, and this is going to be like, it's a deeper conversation, I think, to be had about basically disclosure and stuff, and the relevance of sex in our day-to-day life, because this case touches on the sports thing, right? This person was playing on the volleyball team, and so there are maybe questions about fairness, whatever. This case also puts a real wrench in the eye of the sort of anti-trans side. And I don't think everyone who's gender critical is anti-trans, but a lot of them are, frankly. But it really fucks up their favorite line to use on the internet is "we can always tell." And I'm inclined to agree with a lot of that. Like, especially like the longer that you get to like study a person, whatever, like there are oftentimes, certainly not always, and I don't agree with those people who say always, but oftentimes if you're looking long enough and hard enough, you can find these tells of a person's sex or whatever. But this really flies in the face of it, because the plaintiff, the girl who is suing the school, she was living with this young trans woman in a house and had no idea. So it really flies in the face of people who want to say that like these are always like obvious ogurely, manly men. So that's just obviously not true in this case. And I've seen a picture of this trans woman, and she's fairly well passing. Again, like now that I know she's trans, and if I'm looking at her, there are certain gives, but whatever. And so there's an argument being made by the sort of trans activist side, and even just like regular trans people, that's an understandable one, which is like there's no accusation of any wrongdoing anywhere here. There's not even an accusation really of unfairness in the sport, but even like within the locker rooms or within the home that they were living in, there's no accusations that the trans woman was being creepy or anything like that, right? So I think that makes this all challenging. However, the thing that I think a lot of people on the sort of pro-trans side of this conversation aren't willing to engage with is it's completely reasonable for a young woman to feel really disturbed in hindsight, especially if this person is not all like goo whatever in on the trans stuff and doesn't believe that humans can change sex and whatever. Because there are some people who are just fully bought into that. And so maybe there's cognitive dissonance, maybe there's not, but to me, it's not unreasonable at all to feel like you were lied to. And, this girl said, like, I might have acted differently in the house, like my bathroom is across the street from her room. And people might think this is not nice and not fair. You should treat a trans girl the way you would treat a cis girl, right? Whatever. But I think that's just not we can't, that's not really a reasonable position to take, right? We have sex segregation and all of these things for a reason, because we acknowledge not only like the physical risks, but, and I don't like to make emotional safety concerns, but but that part is there too, right? And so I think it's really fair for a 20-year-old girl to feel like I wouldn't have been walking around my house naked if I knew that this person was male. So I think this is going to be a really interesting case, because again, there's essentially no wrongdoing, and she seems to be really mad at the coaches who, like, she says encouraged her to live with the trans girl. It seems like the coach said, these are the 2 volleyball houses. You might like this one more because all of these girls here are going to be in your graduating class, So I think all of that is being made more than what, at least to me, seems provable or whatever. But I do think there is something here at the heart of it that makes the sort of trans activist side very uncomfortable, which is disclosure might need to be necessary.
Yes. On one hand,
in some cases, disclosure is necessary.
Yeah, I haven't read the like case or the case briefings or whatever they laid out.
Right.
I just did a quick Google, and like some of the counts were like, or whatever, were like dropped by the court, or they said they tossed some of the claims. I think there were 3, and out of 3 there's 1 left, and I don't really know what it like the specifics of it, but just like basically on what you're saying, I understand, like logically, I understand the argument that this girl's making, and I'm sympathetic to it, and at the same time I'm like, kind of like, well, these feelings that you have about like living with somebody in the past to bring a lawsuit, I don't know how strong I feel that is, like on a personal level, on an
in terms of the strength of the lawsuit.
In terms of the strength, I would have to like see what the things are, and then even on like a moral level or an ethical level, I think that there should be disclosure. I don't think things should have to be done through lawsuits. I understand that they might have to be done through lawsuits if they're not going to be done voluntarily, right?
Right.
I think people should be able to decide that they don't want to live with somebody who is biologically a man for various reasons, potentially religious reasons, potentially just like preference reasons, safety reasons, for whatever concerns they have. I think there are concerns. They can be valid. I don't have to agree with all of them or none of them, but there should be a way to have that privacy if you so choose. But because nothing happened, I think it's a little hard. I don't know if this is like necessarily the case to bring or not. We'll have to see that. I think it probably, these types of things, when they go to court, I don't know. It doesn't do anybody any favors sometimes, because the activist class, if you will, who like are unwilling sometimes and unyielding in every way, are like very unhelpful, you know what I mean? And then like just saying, I don't know, like I feel uncomfortable and I wouldn't have lived that way. Well, it might be true. I don't know if that rises to like a legal standard where you can retroactively go get a judgment. If you're not in currently knowing and somehow forced or reliant to stay there, like then I could see that, like then I could maybe see something happening. But if it's in the past, I don't know. So
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
see.
and I think I agree with you. Like, to me, again, it's not clear to me like what this case is. Like, it's not clear to me what the damages are, right?
Yeah.
And so it does feel like a very strange lawsuit.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the cultural problem that we have here, basically, right? And again, and I have sympathy for this young trans girl who's now going to be famous, you know, when again, there's no one's alleged that she did anything wrong. Right. And even, and this is where a lot of the TERFs and anti-trans people are just so cruel and so vicious and want to treat the actual trans person as the problem, when in my opinion, the problem is our cultural understanding of what trans is and the way that we've decided to prioritize gender over sex and law. We we have a trans person who's playing on a women's team, you know, a trans woman who's playing on a women's team and living in women's living quarters and using a women's locker room is doing so because that's what they're told to do. You are supposed to use the facilities and whatever and all of this. And they've likely gone through all of the hoops necessary to change their name and change their sex marker. And I don't think you should be able to change your sex marker, but they've done all these things. They've followed all these rules. Another thing that like the anti-trans side, they want trans people so badly to be perverts or predators in some way, when the reality is the overwhelming majority of trans people simply are not. Of course. And so it's really not fair, I think, to like impugn all of this negative intent on this trans girl. And again, back to sort of what we said at the beginning of this, that you should be given the opportunity to consent to living in close living quarters where you're going to be undressed and stuff with a male or not. You like that it does come down to, frankly, these are privacy concerns on both sides, right? So there's the privacy concern for the girls who are unknowingly, let's say, getting undressed and changing and whatever and cuddling up in bed, as she said, right, with a male. And there's the privacy concerns of the trans person, of the trans woman in this case. I forget her name. But I won't even bring it up because again, it's like not fair to me that she's going to get any of this attention, frankly. But then there's her privacy essentially, right? Like, and this has been a part of the trans talking points, for lack of better terms, the trans activist talking points for a while has been essentially like that we should never need to disclose, right? That like they bring up some valid points where disclosing could be a safety issue. Which like, sure, like it could be, but that's less likely to be a safety issue if you are disclosing to, you know, girls who you're considering rooming up with than disclosing to a man on a date out on the road, you know, like when you're in some vulnerable position or whatever. And I think like it's true. This is essentially like a lot of this trans stuff. We're coming to a head with a collision of rights here, right? Does the trans person have the right, essentially, right, to a space that closely aligns with their gender identity, or do the females have the right to protect sex segregated spaces? And so the same thing I think is coming up here. Yeah, and again, unfortunately, I think the law has to side with the majority and the protected class here of sex. Essentially, I think sex, and it shouldn't be trans versus non-trans. It needs to be the priority of sex over gender where it matters, it matters. And I think too, just on the interpersonal level, like again, knowing from like trans people that I know in my life, like it's really heavy carrying the secret. You know, and it influences like a lot of trans people, not all obviously, but a lot of trans people live in their head a lot because everything they're doing, they're trying to do to make sure that they don't get found out and they don't get caught. And that's a burden that I don't wish on anybody and that I have a lot of sympathy for. And so I hope that we can get to a place, you know, ironically, not that like Thailand is some like bastion of freedom or whatever, but like, I think we need to come to a more reality-based understanding of what trans is, right? Which is like we should treat trans people with respect and acknowledge that trans women, they're not female, they're not literally women, right? But there are so many people who will treat you the way that you are presenting and the way that you want to be treated, that it doesn't need to be and shouldn't be forced on other people. And also to the trans person, like a trans person, they both carry this burden of trying to keep a secret, but also they don't want to feel like a predator. Like I'm confident that this trans girl never wanted, if it were to get out, like it's setting them up. I think essentially our systems right now are setting trans people up for failure in this way. I don't mean failure by getting outed, but I mean like if they get outed or if they come out themselves, if they choose to disclose, some people are going to be upset with that because they are going to feel like they were lied to in some fundamental way. And so I think this should be more of a cultural issue than a legal one. But then to your point, it seems like there's very little movement culturally. Like there are the liberals or the people who have good intentions and are actually supportive of trans people, we would hope would be the people that you could get to have this adult conversation about really weighing the rights, of gender versus sex in the law. And it seems like the only way this has been effective, as the gender critical movement has found, is through lawsuits, right? But this one just feels really thin. Like I don't know what the damages are. I don't really know what they're claiming. And yet I still think this brings up a really important issue about sex and disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, well, maybe read into it and see what the specifics are with it. And just like before we go, I'm going to have to wrap in a minute. It was like last week, the Supreme Court sided with parents in, I guess it was California, over like policies regarding trans stuff, insofar as the school cannot like adopt a new name and a new pronoun for a child without informing the parents. That was the ruling. I don't think they've officially ruled on the entire case. It was like the case is coming, but they did like an emergency kind of like injunction type of thing on it for the time being. That is my understanding, but I could be mistaken with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm inclined to agree with that. Like, this is the problem too. Is like the problem is just how little the sides of this debate interact with each other at all. Like everyone is in their own information bubble, and I mean that both like who they talk to and like the kind of data that they're looking at, right? And so people like you and I who are likely to agree with that parents should be at the very least notified if their kids are taking on a new gender identity, a new identity, a new name and pronouns and stuff in school, is because social transition is not a neutral intervention. It's just not. No.
It's a psychological intervention. And like there was I suppose there was a one of the kids involved, it was like kept from their parents, and then this child like attempted suicide. So like the stakes are obviously very high, and that's kind of been my position. If you now you're aware that a child is like, they to a degree that they have gender dysphoria, that they want to use a new name, a new pronoun, and like an adult in their home, in their life, should know about that. And to the concern of like a parent might be abusive over this, well, there are laws for abusive parents, or if you suspect abuse, you're a mandated reporter. You cannot assume all parents are just going to be abusive, and you
every teacher cannot, to be clear, teacher, social worker, person in that building is a mandated reporter.
And
correct.
To be clear, if you assume, this is actually even worse in some ways, because it's like if you assume that the parent is going to be abusive, or maybe the child is saying something, who knows? Now you're saying to trans youth that normally we call for kids who are abused, but in your case, we're not going to call. We're just going to keep your secret, and the threat of abuse is going to remain. It's just such a fucked up ass backwards way to do things, and there's no way that it can like stay in play for like any length of time. The idea that like schools keeping things from parents of that nature, I find
it's just a recipe for disaster. Yeah,
it is. And as somebody who has like, I have kids, I have teenagers, I have little kids, it's just like an alarming idea, you know what I mean, that my kid could go to school and like be a completely different person, and maybe just not tell you, because they not always, I don't think, some kids just don't want to have the conversation with their parents because they don't want to get pushback on it. And that's normal. That's very normal. When
totally
you're a teenager,
normal
to not want to have pushback on it. So you might allude that the conversation is going to be a difficult conversation, because it might be, but difficult conversations is not abuse, right? Like,
it might not even be pushback. It can also just be it makes it more real.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yes.
even if they're not afraid, but I think that's a good point. A lot of, they just, it's just nervous. They just don't want to, and sometimes it's just like, in the same way that you don't want to, some kids don't share with their parents what's going on with their friends and who they're dating and stuff, who they have a crush on. Like, right. It's like my parents they're not in this world, you know? And yeah, they don't want to get pushback. They don't want maybe to make it real. Maybe they're in their minds, they're experimenting and testing it out and stuff. And like, okay, if the kid's gonna individually do that on their own with their friends, that's one thing. But the school choosing to like taking this in, changing their names on internal documents, this is just a step way, way beyond that.
Yes, there's definitely something different than like trying out and adopting identities with your friends, and then having like other adults in trusted positions, like affirming that and adopting those same, like that same, I guess, type of language for you. Yeah, I think that's, you know, it is an intervention. So, you know, parents. But, you know, whatever we think of, you know, individual parents, I don't think that the policy can just be, we don't tell parents, period.
No.
You know, so.
And there's like a little bit of,
and it was
propaganda.
like an interim court docket. It was an interim court docket. I don't know exactly what all that, you know.
There's also a little bit of propaganda. Amongst trans activists and sort of amongst educators generally, and I say this as someone who both my parents were public school teachers, there is like this tension between like school and home and teachers and parents. And like, I do think that like, even just certainly, especially when we're looking at different geographic locations, the risk of abuse at home for coming out as gay or gender dysphoric or something is overblown. It just is like, and so, yeah, like it's gone, I think, from a place of like recognizing that there are abusive parents, fundamentalist parents, whatever, and stuff like that, and wanting to protect these rare individual cases where a kid tells you something or whatever, and the disclosure could harm the kid at home, to now the assumption is all parents are abusive, basically. And so any kid who just says, don't tell this to my parents, that's enough. That is literally enough. The kid just has to say, don't tell my parents. And the parents are then treated functionally as if they are a threat to their children. And that's not right. It's not accurate, and it's wrong morally, right? Like it's just it's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have to wrap. I have to go get my kids. Keep your blister says later. I enjoy live streams for interactions of the streamers in chat. There is none of that here. Well, sorry to disappoint you. I'm about to wrap because I have to go get my kids off the bus, and we were just kind of like going over stuff quickly, but see you later. Tali, is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Sorry for the disappointment in the chat, everyone.
We'll see if we can do it again soon. We'll let you guys know.
Yeah, I'll let you know my schedule for this week, and we'll see the next time we can do it.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.